Put a little life in this party.
This looks really good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, welcome back. We're gonna shift gears a little bit here, and you know, I want to talk about Neil Armstrong setting foot on the moon and what I saw on TV. Remember when I was a kid, and we were so excited about this. My dad and I, we had the Saturn V rocket model. We built that thing, and as the rocket's going up, we're taking the stages off. We're at this stage, we're at that stage, you know. So it was kind of an interactive thing for me as a child growing up, being able to watch this landing on TV. And I remember watching it. I'm just going, "Wow, man, that's really amazing." And I had some questions about it, though. I was seeing some things that wasn't really completely clicking with me, even as a child. I went, something just didn't feel right. So we saw Neil Armstrong, you know, one small step for man.
One giant leap for mankind.
For mankind. I know the rest of it. Everybody knows it, right? To live through that era, to be able to see that, you know, not everybody has that. You know, we have new generations now that just have no clue, you know, what that was like and what we saw. What did you see? I've just given you my experience. Can you share with us your experience of the moon landing?
Well, when I heard those words, I asked myself, I wonder how long they thought about what words to say. I'm sure they had it planned. And it never occurred to me there was anything else going on when I first saw those words other than the regular landing. So when Bill told me that he was watching TV in a secret room, and that on the TV that there were craft on the crater at the same time that Neil Armstrong was, or close to when Neil Armstrong was saying these words, I was stunned. And the reason I was so excited is because Bill had drawn a sketch of what was on the TV, and that sketch is in the book.
It is.
Yeah. It's a totally different story. It confirms what I have increasingly believed, namely the process of controlling the secrets is so sophisticated that the government is able to fool the entire public that nothing anomalous was seen there, and the anomalies being 7 craft on the crater.
Tell us about this room, Bill. How many people were there, and what did they see?
Well, it was, I got sort of hired at TRW to put together like a little command and control station for the Apollo program, where the facility actually set up straight contacts with mission control in Texas, so that we got the same information going and coming and listening to the astronauts' comments. And it was in not a large room. It was off-site, not on the regular facility at TRW. And we set this up so that we could monitor those missions as the company, which is putting together all kinds of proposals on space systems and then do unsolicited bids back to the government.
Where off-site was it? Where off-site was it? That's the first I'd ever heard of that.
Me too.
It was only about 6 miles because actually TRW had hundreds of off-site facilities, and it's just one of those, like in a separate building, only 6 blocks from the facility, and we had all of the communications that NASA had, and we were connected to them, so we could contact them if it became necessary, but we were just monitoring. That's all we were doing.
This is a different mental image from what I read in the book. I was under the impression this was like at mission control, you know, the tiered, you know, control center there. or with the 100 people or whoever was controlling the entire mission. But this, you're telling me this was separate from.
Yeah, this is a separate thing. Mission Control was down in Texas, and it should have been in the Los Angeles airport because that's where all of the space people were. But
Humans.
after Kennedy got taken out, why a certain governor moved everything to Texas. But we had the capabilities of listening to the conversations and viewing what was taking place, even with some of the cameras. Like, for instance, after in the maneuver to get from launch position to the moon, we had to separate stages. Like, we had to separate the LEM stage from the S-4B, turn them around backwards and connect them again. There's all kinds of very complicated maneuvers that we were doing while we were flying there, okay?
I remember that. I remember all that, yeah.
And so remember also that we had launched some 12, 14 surveying missions where we sent up satellites that flew around the moon so we could be looking at where we were going to land, make the selection of where we wanted to land, and we had seen facilities, ancient facilities on the moon. We already knew this.
What year was this?
This was, I guess, the last year before the actual launch.
Okay, so who are we? Is it, who are we? Is it NASA or is it?
I'm speaking of NASA. We NASA. And so these, before the first man went to the moon, you don't just go there cold. What you do, it was the program to go, and several different vehicles were sent up to photograph different areas, even to confirm the location that they wanted to land. Was there any problems around that? So these vehicles go out, the cameras get turned on, they make their missions around the moon, and they take their photographs as they're going around. So, and those are programmed from NASA facilities here. That's not the one that we had at TRW. But that was already programmed, so we, supporting NASA, we, TRW, saw some of the photographs of the previous non-manned missions, which showed buildings, ancient buildings. We also saw translucent buildings which were parked like a building could be 3/4 of a mile high, glass, and be 1.5 miles above the surface of the moon.
So Bill, this was over a period of months or just in the vicinity of the Neil Armstrong landing?
It was like these appeared over the year before the first launch, man-launched vehicle. Okay, so we found all kinds of, NASA found all kinds of new things, which of course they didn't release.
Was TRW getting this at the same time as well? Were they aware of
No,
this?
but before that, we were getting the same information from our people in NASA, okay? So we're like in bed with the NASA missions. We're making recommendations and program. We have a contract.
So TRW had access to the medical communications?
Yeah, and we had access to most everything on the program.
Okay.
Communications-wise, everything. But this separate little building thing was sort of different in that this gave us, at our facility here in Los Angeles, sort of a window to what Houston was looking at, okay? We got sort of this stuff. And maybe not legally, but we were doing this. Okay, anyway,
Well, Bill, did you see some of these buildings also on the TV? Did your eyes personally see these?
yeah, we saw some of the structures.
But did you see?
But wait a minute, yeah, but we saw those
He keeps
down
saying
at
we.
the,
I
wait a
want
minute, that was down at the NASA facilities before the first manned mission.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that. So because they had to do the
Yeah.
reconnaissance, but did you personally yourself lay eyeballs on a building a mile and a half above or on the surface of the moon?
One of the ones that I saw was a glass building that was floating like a mile above the surface.
You saw that one.
Yeah.
Was it lit up? Was it broken? Was it?
It looked like a translucent building, not clear. The pictures weren't clear. That same series of photographs that they had, that NASA had, showed 3 different areas on the other side of the moon which had ancient structures on the surface of the moon. And we saw those before any manned mission.
It's exciting new stuff to me.
It is as it is for me. I'm agape. I can't. I'm just like,
Okay,
wow. Well, so hang on. So here's a question for you, Bob, and please, we're going to come back to that in a second. At what point does a building stop becoming a building and become a spacecraft? It's a mile and a half above the surface. And
okay, what we were looking at, and this is down at Huntsville, because most of the studies, the data went immediately there. They didn't decipher the data in the command center in Houston. Everything went to Von Braun's, Dr. Debus's facility.
what's on your mind? What are you thinking?
What's on my mind? NASA never said anything except that Houston was in total command of all these missions. And they never admitted that the Huntsville had anything to do with this level of activity. I mean, Huntsville basically was initially kind of an Army program. Yeah. And, but clearly, Bill is saying is that Von Braun and Debus were able to get access to the top secret NASA stuff on the side without a lot of people knowing about it.
Because they were running it.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill, I think I'm reflecting on my insistent question about this mile and a half thing. I may have misinterpreted what you said. You said a mile and a half above the surface. Does that mean it's floating above the surface, or is that the structure's a mile and a half high?
The structure is a mile and a half high, and it's stationed there. Okay, it has a permanent station position.
Floating.
Floating. So it's not
Floating.
attached to the moon. It's still.
No, it's got nothing. It's not attached to the moon. It's just one, and it's a rectangle, like a rectangle building.
like a skyscraper. Or
Big
whatever,
square,
your standard,
yeah.
Long,
Yeah.
rectangular.
First time heard of that.
It almost looked like ice that you put in your drinks.
So is the altitude that this structure is floating above the moon a mile and a half above the moon's surface?
Yeah, above the moon's surface.
Okay, and how big? And so the structure, it's hard. It'd be difficult to kind of gauge the size.
It could be like a 200-foot, 200-story building, floating, big rectangular building floating.
Back to my question about when does a building become a ship?
There were other facilities. There were other facilities that were like streets or roads on the surface that they photographed. So all this stuff was new. All of it was classified, of course. So you knew a little bit about your mission of where you're going to go before you went there, okay? That was the purpose of it, but they found all this stuff. So the actual mission, the first one, when the astronauts got there, before they got there, halfway, It wasn't broadcasted back to the public's information of the mission, but NASA got it, and that was that there were a number of vehicles, huge vehicles, who were closing in on our Apollo vehicle, which now is only the S-4B stage, and because Boeing's first stage booster is gone, North American's second stage booster is gone. Now we've got the S-4B stage and the LEM, okay? So we're a very small vehicle, and this massive extraterrestrial vehicle is coming at us, and our transmitting antennas that look at this system, that are watching this, can see this coming in. So this great big vehicle looks like it's going to hit us. It didn't, and it had no intention. Simply came in, moved around us, and finished its orbit. Then those guys eventually landed on the high edge of the craters, like the steep part of the outside edges of the round craters. They didn't land, they parked above it and they hovered.
They were hovering, just like it shows in your drawing.
Yeah,
Now, these were these ships had closed on the rocket and passed them, landed down there, and waited for them to land? Are these the same ships that they saw down?
well, actually they came in, obviously not to damage us, our direction, but saying hello or whatever, okay, or giving us, no, that came later.
I have a question, Bill. Do you have any knowledge as to whether the astronauts were shown this previous information about what was on the backside of the moon or not? Were they kept in the dark?
That's a great question.
The personnel that were on the mission were knowledgeable of what was there, okay? So all of the astronauts did not know, but the astronauts that were making the mission were told ahead of time they were to look for that as they made their orbit around the moon
okay.
to set up
Okay.
the landing mission.
Okay, thank you. High clarity.
But I'm just saying that if you hear the conversations between Mission Control and the Apollo, they're talking about seeing as they orbit around the moon before the landing, okay, because you don't just come and land, you orbit. They're talking back and forth at different facilities as they're flying around the other side, which then confirmed the mission that their unmanned satellites missions went up there and photographed. The unmanned ones that were photographed before the first manned mission. So yeah, that stuff was confirmed, and it went back and forth in the conversations. And even to the point that one of them wasn't there, it was further over to the southwest part of so-and-so. So those kind of conversations were going back, none of which the public heard, and even none of which some of Houston heard, okay? What got back to the command center, missions control in Houston was broken and split too. Not everybody there heard everything. Not just they covered it up. Other people covered it up for normal public, but
Right,
it
sanitized,
was even covered to individuals.
Bill, because this communication system was part of your responsibility, that meant that you probably went to this remote building more than just once, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. But what I'm saying is, you didn't just see a large group of tremendously large military-like vehicles parked around the side. one of these came by and another one came by when they're still going into orbit, before they even got into orbit. And
Right, so yeah.
maybe they saluted, maybe they didn't. Maybe the admiral snapped his heels together and saluted. I don't know, but he had what was a friendly.
Was it a
Pass.
friendly? Yeah, friendly pass. Do we know who they are? I mean, who are these?
So I'm just saying, before what's in the book, where it says, I say that this is what happened actually as the astronauts climb down out of the little structure. They look up and they see this. They saw it before. Mm-hmm. They already saw it before. But in the book, you know, you try to write a story, and but
No, go
you
ahead. Sorry.
you don't have that part in it.
During our break, I had done some research this last week on Apollo landing, and I came across a testimony by Linda Moulton Howe, who knows an astronaut, or at least a friend of Neil Armstrong. Mm-hmm. And this person, firsthand testimony, who knew Neil, heard Neil say while he was visiting his house, words to the effect of, they made me turn the limb because there were three of them down there, or something like that. I've got it here in my notes, but basically acknowledging that, you know, Neil had said something, and when he was saying it, he said it under his breath as he was looking down, staring at the floor. So was the testimony that Linda had received. Now here you are, telling us these ships are flying by, saluting, landing, you know, and you see the feed on the Earth. You know.
Well, NASA saw that. Come on, NASA saw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't. Bob, you and I. We didn't get to see it.
No, that's right.
That's my whole point.
But so the other thing that come out of this is that we had other missions. We had 8 other missions to go up there and do all kinds of stuff. So you had to go down there and land first, do your first thing, and then try to adjust those other missions that you have planned that would respond properly to what we found.
Right.
Well, I'd like to offer a sort of global thought here. I think what Bill believes, I think, is very important for us to listen to. But what Bill saw and what he heard is unique, because that's, in effect, firsthand witness testimony. And so, Bill, some of the things that are so interesting here is that you're reporting on what you saw on the screen. That's quite unique, and that's why I think it's so highly relevant. And what you heard and what you saw when you were when you were exposed to the interviews with these Navy operatives in 1942 to 45, that to me is also unique, because you're the only person alive who knew what was said in that room that resulted in what we learned about what was going on in Nazi Germany in those war years.
Yeah, well,
So-
other people that were in those meetings heard it.
They're dead, though.
Yeah. Oh,
I think.
okay.
So you have, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, when we talk about, you know, any kind of investigation, be it legal or otherwise, you know, or history, for example, you always want to have a firsthand account, you know, and then you can impeach to the end of days, you know, this guy's character is insanity, whatever, you know, then you weigh it, you know, is this, you know, how much weight do we give this in our own accepted truth and reality? You know, what are we searching for? What do we get? Here we have Bill sharing with us a version of history that none of us have heard. We didn't see it on TV. But TV is not the end all and do all. So I'm going to wrap up with one thing, and if you hold that thought for a second, it's about proof. First-hand testimony. I'm interested in what Bill has experienced and seen. I'm interested in what you've experienced and seen. But there's other sources of information as well that we all receive, and it's through media. You know, we're getting it on the internet. It's not ours. It's somebody else's. You know, so how do we discern? You know, we go back to, is this something you know or something you heard from somebody else? And I'll leave it at that, Bill.
So what takes place then is they don't have a problem with the landing, which they had anticipated they would have. They climb down. They first thing they do is take the Freemason plaque and they put it over next to the structure so you can see both of them, and they photograph that as the Freemasons then accepting the ownership of the moon. Okay, I don't know whether we understood that part.
No, no, I got it, but go ahead.
And so then, all this before you do your real thing. They dig down in the box where all the stuff is, and they bring out the Freemason flag. And they stick it in here like this, and they stand next to the Freemason flag. Okay? First things first here.
So you've seen these photos?
Yeah. And I'm only saying, what have the Freemasons got to do with this?
Well, we've seen the photos of was it Buzz Aldrin with his ring and his bib, on the limb, so this is not.
It's not totally new.
Yeah, so we've heard this before, but you're seeing this being done. Is that what you're saying, that you saw them through the video feed, them conducting this little ceremony on the on before one small step for man, it's one planting of a flag for the Freemasons, and then we'll do the one small step. What came first? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask, what are Freemasons? What are they doing here? Every one of the astronauts were Freemasons. Wow.
No, I'm taking you literally, Bill. I mean, the first things first. I mean, am I getting that right? Is it fair for us? I mean, are you telling us that
before you accepted that you were there, United States, accepting that you owned the moon, which you don't own it, it's not yours.
Well, Walter's asking a very specific question. What the timing was the Freemason ceremony before, after the small step for mankind?
No, it was before. The first thing that was done was the
now, did they do
the
that
two things
in the craft or on the moon?
on the surface of the moon.
It just keeps getting worse, better. I don't know. It's just
No, wait a minute. You put the plaque on the dirt, on the soil.
You said next to the structure, so that would.
And then you take all the pictures with them standing by the plaque, okay? Then you separately one of the guys brings the flag down, you stand that up, and then the guys stand by the...
And they climb back up the ladder into the thing, and they do the Neil Armstrong show.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard this?
Never heard it. Brand new.
Welcome to Search for Truth Reality, my friends. This is just an amazing...
Well, you've read about Freemason rings. You've seen them inside the limb, okay? But what I'm saying is this part about, obviously, it was determined that when Neil Armstrong said, "Good God, sir, they are enormous," referring to these massive extraterrestrial craft, okay? They weren't crafts, they were ships. They were not crafts, they were ships. And so for them to be parked around the edge of the crater, above the surface, floating, okay? And then many of the reptilians standing with their legs apart, standing up
all right.
on the ground.
They're on the surface. The reptilians are on the surface of the moon. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, they're standing underneath the ships.
And you saw this.
Yeah, and
Were they scaly? Did they have
then the word
on? Or they...
then the word came back. They're giving us the finger.
Oh my God.
Well, they were pretty far away for you to tell what they really looked like, weren't they?
Yeah, it's a long ways. It's hard to do it. But whether that was actually happening, the finger thing or not,
yeah.
but that's what the statement they made.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so now we have to trust somebody else's word, an astronaut who's a 33-degree Mason who's.
Yeah, so they're giving us the finger, right?
But nobody even knows that the astronauts are Freemasons. Nobody knows this. That's,
All of them? All of the ones that went to the moon,
yeah, all the ones that went to the moon were.
but not necessarily all astronauts
No,
today.
but I'm talking about the Apollo program.
Well, we know at least Buzz is. We've seen photos of him, and the assumption would be, well, are the others? I've not seen anybody beyond Buzz Aldrin outed as, 33-degree Mason.
I don't know, but I know an astronaut socially, he comes to a local MUFON meeting. Next time I'll ask him, are you a Freemason?
Oh yeah, show me your ring. Go ahead. Let's see. Just go. Show me the ring. That's how you ask them. Where's the ring? I want to see it.
Yeah. So there really wasn't much more to say because essentially time was of the essence. They had a lot of things they had to do,
Yeah.
a lot of early testing, even though a lot of the testing part came with other missions. They tried to get as much as they could. And, but there was obviously other people there. It wasn't that they flew in and nobody else was on the moon. The reptilians were on the moon.
Well, it seems a little backwards though. So let's say they know. They know there's reptilians or whatever. There's beings up there. They know there's craft up there. They know there's structures up there. They gotta know that there's life up there too. And yet they go through this ceremony. They put this plaque out and the flag, and they claim it for themselves. Really? Yeah. Whose moon is it? You think it's yours? Yeah. Those are your words.
No, really, it's not your moon.
No, it's not your moon.
And not even your planet. We're just a laboratory for the rest of them.
Okay.
The thing about people on the moon that interests me exceptionally much is the idea that the first recent Homo sapien on the moon was a German Navy captain. And according to Michael Sala's book,
Yeah.
that was the case. I forget his name right now, but it was what, in 1942 or so?
yeah.
Something like that. He set foot on the moon and began a small Navy base up there,
Yeah.
German Navy.
Yeah.
So then by the time the war was over, there was a group of, 20 or so Nazis who were up there.
That were already up there, yeah.
Yeah, right. So they had already made their deal with the reptilians
Yeah.
that were giving us the finger
Yeah.
years later,
But all that was done before.
25 years later.
Yeah.
So the thing that excites me so much is, as I said earlier, the idea that the Germans were way ahead of us and even on the moon before the end of the war is something that if we can convince the public that that's true, then I think it's a lot easier to convince them all the rest of this is almost unbelievable stuff. But just take that first step.
Yeah.
And the first step is so important to me is because it depended on what Bill personally overheard these Navy operatives say over a period of 3 years
Yeah.
in the presence of Admiral Rico Botta, and the process whereby multiple times these fellows testified and what they saw, and then you helped them create the final reports and delivered them.
Yeah.
And even the Admiral said, this is unbelievable sometimes, right?
Yes, it really did. And Michael Salas did a study through Freedom of Information, getting some recent study on Admiral Rico Botta. And the study stated that before Rico Botta took his position as Commander Naval Air Station San Diego, he visited 4 aircraft companies, 4 of them. He talked to the top people in those 4 companies, Lockheed, North American, Douglas, whatever. And then 4 weeks later, Billy Tompkins lands there and he's got this package for these guys, okay? And that document also confirmed that Tompkins represented a 4-star admiral in his presentations.
How old were you? How old were you at this time?
When you started
18.
18 years old.
And that's not in the book, but Mike LaSalle got this just recently, within the last 3 or 4 months, in Freedom of Information. A whole lot more about the admiral.
Intelligence background of Rico Bottom.
Right.
Yeah, and it confirmed that yes, he did visit 4 aircraft companies before the first package was delivered. And that Tompkins represented the 4-star admiral as the person disseminating the data. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you get any kind of validation or confirmation, really corroborating data behind your testimony, that's always.
Well, I know,
very,
Bill.
very
Yeah, I know, Bill, that some of these many meetings with the Navy operatives must run together in your mind. But is there any one thing that they said that was the most amazing to you that was going on in Germany that you almost could hardly believe?
Okay, so we're stepping away. We're stepping away from the Apollo, and we're going to jump into World War II. Yes, and the early life of the tender Billy Tompkins and his missions. So please continue.
Actually, I can truthfully say I can't pick out one that was so much more of a unbelievable situation, because literally everything that they were bringing, you have to think of it this way. The SS were given bright, shiny, brand new UFOs, okay?
That would have been
It was
exciting.
totally different than us.
Yeah.
We get,
Are you sure?
no, and so here it is, play with it. We'll
Yeah.
teach you how to drive it,
Right.
okay? So the SS was so much advanced of us that bringing these packages back and disseminating them around the country, they're just packages of sketches, of some drawings, of a couple of paragraphs, and on a subject of communications or propulsors or something, and given to the different companies to make one of those. So you didn't, good God, they were,
So the packages that you were delivering to the companies, typically we would now call RFPs, or request for proposals,
yeah,
in effect.
yeah. But I mean, a request for proposal is a big, long stack of contract data, okay? We didn't have that.
They're handing out Post-it notes. Here's a stick drawing. Can you make this?
Yeah, Bob, you're giving it to me, and I'm over here at Northrop.
Yeah.
But you didn't give me a request for proposal. You gave me, the data you gave me is of not even in the German language. Some of it is hieroglyphics.
So basically, you're saying that there was a little ambiguity as to what was being delivered and what was the intent, but basically we're just telling our aircraft companies that it looks like this is what the Germans have, and think about whether we could replicate it, but they didn't really ask the question.
Well, they didn't. They also asked all kinds of questions that I didn't have answers for. But the point was, we wanted them to study that
Right.
and see if there would be any way that we could understand it, and then
Right.
try to see if something could be designed, like a communication system that would do that.
Right.
You know what? This is like decades before you picked up your first UFO book.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was a very difficult thing to do. I finally got to a standard set of things I would say to, because I did it so many times.
The standard
got
thing is
it now.
like what you just said, right?
Yeah, I'd get a dialogue,
Yeah.
and I would use the same dialogue. We know, take a look at this, and then there's this part here, and I would go into, I'd answer the questions, because remember, if Bob's doing it and I'm Northrop, Bob is asking me to take this, some guy's sketches, some drawings, some photographs, and a couple of documents that are not even in English or German. They're in a hieroglyphics.
But typically
they're in Egyptian hieroglyphics.
Now, were they Egyptian for sure, or were they?
Well, you
something
don't know.
else?
You don't. They were that
Okay, so-
type. That type.
All right, because now if they were Egyptian, that'd be cool. But the point is, there's some kind of glyphs, some kind of things that doesn't represent any kind of written language that we.
What's one of
recognize.
those? What's one of those? You know?
Yeah, yeah. What is that? Meanwhile, in Germany, here you go.
Yeah.
So I visualize these conversations you're having. Typically, when you deliver this package, was it to one person or to 2 or 3?
Usually be 4 or 5 people.
4 or 5 people. And was one of them usually pretty high ranking?
Yeah, always.
Always like the president of the company, maybe, or almost high up?
I think of the laboratories, the director of the lab, to like Warminster, Pennsylvania, Naval Development Center, Warminster.
That was a Navy facility, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was an admiral that ran it,
yeah.
and he would always be there at every one of the meetings.
So when you went to the Navy facilities, you usually got the guy in charge.
Yeah.
When you went to the company facilities at Lockheed, you were never quite sure who you got.
I didn't know because a telephone call had been made, a document had been submitted, and to the 4 aircraft companies that Admiral Ricabata went to before he even accepted the mission being Commander of Naval Air Station San Diego. That's how far back this thing went.
Right. But these 4 or 5 guys get this package, they understand it, and they sort of understand it. They understand what it represents. They don't know what to do with it, but they know there's potentially a huge amount of money to be had to basically make one. So they're going to have a story to present to the boss.
Yeah.
And they probably aren't able to create this story right away because they don't know how it works technically. They have to be able to tell whoever is running Lockheed or Douglas that, hey, if we create a proposal to reverse engineer this, it would look like this. But
Yeah.
they got to write the proposal.
Yeah. So this is he's describing really, how hard it is on the company to accept this small package. I guess that's the reason they didn't call them proposals; they called them packages.
Now, one other thing. So it was, as I understand it, was more than just these companies. There were also universities involved as well.
And Navy facilities, all 3.
And with Caltech, it wasn't Caltech in Pasadena. My first one was at Caltech in a brand new temporary building at the Navy facility out in the desert. And Caltech was working on other programs, nothing to do with extraterrestrial.
And the likely guy to be there would be somebody like von Karman, who was working there.
Exactly, that type.
And he's the guy who shows up later as having special knowledge about this subject.
Help me and my viewers out with von Karman. Who is von Karman?
Theodore von Karman, he is recognized as a brilliant aerodynamicist and physicist, responsible for a number of breakthroughs in that field.
Okay, so he'd be one of these guys at the universities.
Yeah, he was a Caltech guy. And I think he was the one who maybe even set up, he was the one who maybe set up the Caltech facility outside of the university aspect of it.
And JPL was right just like this.
Yeah, JPL. Right.
Yeah. But it just, these weren't like, take a look at this, see what you can come up with. It wasn't that at all. I mean,
Well, they were expecting some kind of product to come out of the back end of this.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like we're going to throw money at the wall and see you later, go research and have fun.
Well, he didn't deliver money, he just delivered documents.
Yeah, no.
Well, each company would have to come up with whatever funding to do that and just determine whether to. There's a whole business.
But if it's
Sides to consider as
even
well.
if it's an unsolicited bid from the other side,
Yeah.
that didn't fit this situation at all.
But imagine how hard it would be to get the presidents to actually pay attention to this,
Yeah.
unless they'd have been involved
Yeah.
in the initial
Now, Bob,
meeting.
Right.
Bob's right there. I mean, you have to understand the feel at that time. I mean, it's insane, okay?
Yeah, like I said, chicken scratch on a Post-it note. Here, go make a flying saucer.
Right, right.
Really? I'm gonna spend $1 billion on this. Come back when you got some more information would be my tendency. It's just fascinating to think where we are today. Do we really have a secret space program? Have we mastered anti-gravity? Are we actually out on all the planets in our solar system and the 12 closest stars, which I think was the other part of the Apollo program, using these the Nova trucks, these huge rockets to take machines into the sky.
My gut feeling is yes to all those questions.
And so it's all been done.
Yeah, it's all been done.
And here we are talking about where is it? And when Bill comes along and tells me, oh yeah, I saw that back, and so yeah, I saw it. It's like, dude, man, where you been? I saw it. I want to. We're running short on storage space on our disk. We got a few more minutes. What I like to do is ask this question. There was something that was left out of your book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. And the other part of this, I love this title, My Life in the Top Secret World of UFOs, Think Tanks, and Nordic Secretaries. The question was, and you told me about this last time we visited, because you pointed this out, that you forgot to include this in the book, and it was a question that I had, and I'm sure a lot of the readers out there had about the book, is how did you learn that your secretaries were indeed Nordic extraterrestrials?
Okay, you have to go back to the chapter of how I got her, because there were three other people that came in first. And there's, in that chapter, they were nice young ladies. They were smart. Some of them actually really did work good. But then 5 or 6 weeks after we got them, they disappear. Or they get told that they were being transferred to the El Segundo plant. And then my attorney does the investigation and finds out that she didn't even report there, and she doesn't live in her apartment. So what's this all about,
This was after you were at Douglas? After you were at Douglas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and actually, on the Apollo program, I had an attorney, and no other section chiefs had attorneys. Well, that was supposedly to keep me out of trouble, because I was in trouble a lot, okay? But that was really because what we were doing had so many things in it that writing a document and isolating it so nobody else could build it requires legal process. And so that's what he really was. He put together these packages that came up in the development of the programs, where we would have essentially new businesses for the company. And so patents got involved. And it got so big that the Navy formed a patent office in San Francisco. We worked directly with them. It was a Navy patent office. Some of the stuff was coming from extraterrestrial. Some of it we were designing. It's amazing. And no other engineering department in aerospace even approached that, because they never had the need.
So we've got a few minutes left here on our time on the disc here. So if you can tell us how you came to actually learn, tell us the day you learned that your secretaries were Nordics.
Okay, sorry to deviate from that. On one flight, about 6 weeks after I finally got my real secretary, and she reported for work, again, flying in another DC-7 to Cape Canaveral with my assistant this time, assistant section chief. He told me, he said, Bill, we could be in trouble. This is on the aircraft. And I said, what? We're in trouble all the time. No, he said, is it wise for us to leave her there because she could sell the whole company to our competition, Lockheed or Boeing? I mean, that woman is unbelievable. You can't leave her alone. She can do anything.
He was worried you left the secretaries behind.
Yeah. And so this goes on, and at that time, neither one of us believes that she's a Nordic. We don't believe that good-looking one over in propulsion is a Nordic. And even the guy that comes every once in a while, their advisor,
Right.
They're not Nordics. We don't believe that. Actually, it was over a year before we really accepted, because of conditions that came up, holy cats, they really are Nordics. Wow. And everything after that completely changed. That's when she simply opened up and started telepathically putting stuff in my head, like so fast I couldn't even keep up with it. Answering the problems, coming up with major problems, answers to them. Now, she didn't answer all the problems, but I would say she answered over 50% of all of the major problems of Apollo. The other stuff I sort of came up with sideways about the answer to the others.
Sure. I mean, so you can't really credit them for providing all the solutions to Apollo. We discussed that in the car on the drive up. So can you tell us about what happened in the staircase?
At what?
In the staircase.
At the staircase?
Yeah.
Okay. Our building in engineering was nothing but a wooden hangar. My section was in the second floor of that hangar. It was a big high curved roof, all made out of wood. So there's splinters around because they didn't take time to clean up everything because we had to get in there real fast. So the stairway going down had splinters in it, and they hadn't cleaned those off. So my secretary is going down the stairs to get the blueprint copies made. And she gets halfway down and she catches her little high-heeled shoes on one of the splinters, and she falls the rest of the way down to the bottom, and she goes unconscious. And so two guys come running over. They sort of hold her and pick her up, and they were going to, the other people came around to help, and they were trying to pat her on the head and see if they could make her wake up. And so it ends up that she doesn't react quickly, so they figure she may be really hurt, and they decided to, well, they called the dispensary to see if they get the doctors to come over, and then they tried to come up with a method to carry her over there. So while this is taking place, she's talking to, no, other people are asking her questions, and she's coming back with stupid answers. And so her boss then said, told her to wake up because she could be hurt and sit up and everything. So she said, who are you? My boss is Bill Tompkins. He's the head of Apollo. And says, no, I'm not. I'm your boss. I'm Captain so-and-so in the Nordic Navy. You're so-and-so, and he calls her by a different name, which is a real name, and they said, "You're a lieutenant commander, and I'm your captain. Wake up." Back and forth all over. So finally she wakes up, and in the meantime, she said some of the wrong things. Fellows had picked her up, holding her by the bottom, and she's waking up and having a ball. So she turns out to wake up, and now she can remember everything. But that's the way that I saw and heard everything that happened to her, and I'm upstairs in my office on the second floor.
Oh.
I saw everything. I heard every conversation. This is the first time I know she's a lieutenant commander. She has a captain who's her boss. There's a contract to Douglas for she, the other girl, and the other guy to report to the admiral everything that goes on, the Nordic Navy admiral, and that mission was a mission to us to see that we accomplished the Apollo missions, all 4 of the Apollo missions.